The needle slipped through skin with practiced precision, but Amara Akafer's hands trembled anyway. Not from the procedure. She'd stitched hundreds of wounds in her 3 years as a trauma nurse in Seoul, but from the weight of the voice still echoing in her head from that morning. You're pretty for a black girl, but let's be honest, no Korean man will ever seriously choose you. Her colleague had said it so casually, like commenting on the weather, before walking away to flirt with one of the doctors. Amara had stood there in the hospital corridor, frozen, the words landing like a diagnosis she'd been avoiding for years. Now, at 11 p.m., she stood in the emergency bay of Severance Hospital, her dark fingers steady against pale skin as she closed a gash on a teenager's forehead. The boy's mother watched her with that familiar expression, a mixture of curiosity and subtle discomfort that Amara had learned to ignore. All done, she said softly in perfect Korean, her accent barely noticeable after years of study and survival. The mother nodded without meeting her eyes. Amara disposed of her gloves and walked toward the staff room, her reflection catching in the darkened windows. 28 years old, single, alone in a country that had given her education and opportunity but never quite acceptance. Her mother's voice from their last video call played in her mind. Amara, maybe you should come home to Lagos. Find a good Nigerian man. This Korea thing, what is it giving you besides loneliness? She couldn't answer that. Didn't want to admit that home felt just as foreign now, that she'd been rejected there too. By the boy she'd loved at university who'd chosen her lighter-skinned roommate. By aunties who'd asked why she didn't glow up like other girls. By a society that had its own hierarchies of beauty she'd never fit. The rain started as she left the hospital at midnight, Seoul's neon lights reflecting off wet pavement in streaks of pink and blue. Amara pulled her jacket tighter and took her usual route through the quieter streets of Sinchon, too exhausted to care about shortcuts. That's when she heard it, a sound like meat hitting concrete, followed by a groan. Her nurse instincts kicked in before her survival ones could stop her. She rounded the corner into an alley and froze. 3 men in black suits stood over a 4th man crumpled against a dumpster, blood pooling beneath him. One of the standing men held a metal pipe. They spoke in rapid Korean, their dialect rough, street level. Should have paid what you owed, you piece of shit. The pipe raised again. Stop, the word left Amara's mouth before she could think. 3 heads turned toward her. The dying streetlight above cast their faces in harsh shadow, but she could see their expressions shift from surprise to calculation. Walk away, sister, one said in English, apparently assuming from her appearance she wouldn't understand Korean. This doesn't concern you. But Amara was already moving forward, her medical bag sliding off her shoulder into her hands. That man needs a hospital. He's bleeding out. He doesn't need anything anymore, the one with the pipe said, stepping toward her. And you need to forget you saw this. Amara's heart hammered, but she'd seen enough death to recognize it hovering. Let me help him and I'll forget everything. I swear, I'm a nurse, I just want to help. The 3 men exchanged glances. The one who seemed to be the leader pulled out his phone, spoke quickly, then nodded. You have 5 minutes. If he lives, you both leave. If he dies, he didn't finish the threat. Amara knelt beside the bleeding man, her hands already assessing wounds. Stab wound to the abdomen, possibly punctured intestine. Severe head trauma. Broken ribs. This man needed surgery, not a battlefield patch job. But she worked anyway, her fingers swift and sure, packing the abdominal wound with gauze from her bag, stabilizing his neck, checking his pupils. He was young, maybe 30, with sharp features and expensive cologne cutting through the smell of blood and garbage. Stay with me, she whispered in Korean. Please stay with me. His eyes fluttered open for just a moment, unfocused but alive, before closing again. 6 minutes later, an ambulance arrived, but not a regular one. The paramedics wore no identification, asked no questions, and loaded the man with military efficiency. One of them handed the leader of the three men a card, which he then thrust at Amara. "You call this number tomorrow. Someone will want to thank you." Then they were gone, melting into Seoul's night like they'd never existed. Amara stood in the empty alley, rain mixing with blood on her hands, and wondered what she'd just become part of. She didn't call the number. For 3 days she went to work, came home to her tiny office in Mapogu, and tried to convince herself that the alley had been a fever dream. But the card sat on her kitchen counter, black with silver embossing, a phone number but no name. On the 4th day, a package arrived. Inside the plain box was a stack of cash, more money than she made in 3 months, and a note in elegant Korean calligraphy. "For your discretion and your skill, you saved a life that many would have let slip away. This will not be forgotten." No signature, no return address. Amara stared at the money, then at her bank statement with its depressingly small balance, her student loan reminders, and the rent increase notice from her landlord. She thought about her principles, her safety, and her reality. She kept the money. Life continued. The incident faded into the category of strange things that happen in big cities that she'd learned to file away for survival. She worked double shifts, studied for her Korean nursing certification upgrade, and avoided thinking about how empty her apartment felt. Until 2 weeks later, when she saw him again. The cafe near her hospital was her refuge, a small place where the owner never asked why she always sat alone, where the coffee was cheap and strong enough to fuel 16-hour shifts. She was marking study notes when someone sat down across from her. "You didn't call." Amara looked up into the face of the man from the alley, except he wasn't dying anymore. He was very much alive, wearing a tailored black suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary, his sharp features now visible in the cafe's warm light. A thin scar traced his jawline, new, probably from the head wound she'd treated. "You were bleeding out in an alley," she said carefully. "I assumed you wouldn't remember." "I remember everything." His Korean was refined, educated, nothing like the street thugs who'd been beating him. "I remember a woman who stopped when she should have run, who knelt in my blood when she should have saved herself, who had steady hands and a kind voice even when she was terrified." Amara's grip tightened on her pen. "I did what any medical professional would do." "No," he leaned back, studying her with dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything. "You did what very few people in this world would do, especially for someone like me." "And who are you?" "Kang Min-jae." He said it like she should know the name, like it carried weight she couldn't yet measure. When she just blinked at him, something like amusement flickered across his features. "You really don't know." "Should I?" "Most people in Seoul would." "I'm not most people." "No," he agreed quietly, "you're not." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the cafe's jazz music and the hiss of the espresso machine. Amara should have been afraid. This man clearly moved in dangerous circles, but instead she felt oddly calm, like the moment before a diagnosis becomes clear. "Why are you here?" she finally asked. "To thank you properly, and to make sure you're safe." His expression shifted, became harder. "The men who attacked me work for rival interests. If they know you helped me, they might come after you. So you've put me in danger just by sitting here." "The danger existed the moment you stepped into that alley. I'm here to mitigate it." "How generous." Bitterness leaked into her voice before she could stop it. "You people play your violent games and the rest of us just get caught in the crossfire." "You people," his eyebrow arched. "Gangsters, criminals, whatever you are." Kang Min-jae smiled then, and it transformed his face from intimidating to almost beautiful. "You're angry. Good. Fear I could manipulate. Anger means you have fire." "I don't need your protection, Mr. Kang. I need you to leave me alone." She gathered her books and stood, but his hand shot out, grasping her wrist. Not hard, she could have pulled away easily, but the touch stopped her cold. They called you something, he said, his voice low. Those men in the alley after you left, they said, that black bitch is going to be a problem. His grip tightened fractionally. I don't let problems happen to people who save my life. Amara stared down at where his fingers encircled her dark wrist, at the contrast of skin tones that had defined so much of her existence. I can take care of myself. I know you can, you've been doing it for years. He released her but held her gaze, but you shouldn't have to do it alone. Something in his voice made her chest ache, a recognition of loneliness that matched her own. She sat back down slowly. What do you want from me? Nothing, he paused, or maybe just to understand why you helped me. I'm a nurse, it's my job. Your job happens in a hospital, not an alley at midnight. Try again. Amara looked away toward the rain-streaked window. Because nobody should die alone in the dark. Because I know what it's like to be invisible, to have people step over you like you don't matter. I couldn't, her voice caught. I couldn't just walk away. When she looked back, Kang Min-jae was watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. What's your name? You don't know it already. I had my people research you, yes. Amara Okafor, 28, trauma nurse at Severance Hospital, originally from Lagos, Nigeria. Excellent credentials. Lives alone, no family in Korea. He leaned forward. But those are facts. I want to know who you are. Why does it matter? Because, he said simply, I think you might be the first real person I've met in 10 years. Over the next month, Kang Min-jae appeared in Amara's life with increasing frequency. Never intrusively, he seemed to have a sixth sense for when she needed space versus when she wouldn't mind company. He showed up at her cafe with expensive pastries, sent a car when she worked late shifts in dangerous areas. Once, when a drunk patient's family member had gotten aggressive with her, the man had mysteriously calmed down after a single phone call, his face going white with fear. Amara knew she should be concerned. Should ask more questions about what exactly Kang Min-jae did, why people feared him, what kind of empire he ran. But the truth was, she'd been invisible for so long that being seen, really seen, by someone felt like coming up for air after drowning. They talked about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up in Gangnam, about a father who'd built a criminal empire and expected his only son to rule it. She told him about Lagos, about feeling too dark there and too foreign here, about the exhausting work of code switching between cultures that both rejected her. You speak 5 languages, he said one evening as they walked along the Han River. Korean, English, Igbo, Yoruba, and you're learning Mandarin. You have a medical degree and nursing certifications. You work 70-hour weeks, but people look at you and see, what? A black girl who doesn't belong. The words came out flat, worn smooth by repetition. Someone's fetish or their fear, never just a person. Kang Min-jae stopped walking, turned to face her. I see someone extraordinary. You barely know me. I know you saved my life when you had every reason to let me die. I know you live with integrity in a world that's given you every excuse not to. I know you're kind even though kindness has been weaponized against you. His hand came up, hovering near her face but not quite touching. I know you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, and I know that saying that probably makes you think I'm lying or using you or... Stop, Amara stepped back. You're a gangster, Min-jae, a criminal, whatever this is, she gestured between them. It can't happen. Why not? Because I spent my whole life trying to be good, trying to be respectable, trying to be worthy of love and acceptance. I won't throw that away for someone like me. For someone who will get me killed. The words hung between them like a blade. Kang Min-jae's expression shuddered, became unreadable. You're right, I apologize for overstepping. He pulled out his phone, made a call. A car will take you home. You won't see me again. He walked away, and Amara stood on the riverbank watching him disappear into Seoul's glittering night, wondering why doing the right thing felt so much like breaking. 3 weeks of silence followed. Amara told herself it was for the best, that she dodged a bullet, perhaps literally. She focused on work, on studying, on the comfortable numbness of routine. Then her colleague Sun-hee cornered her in the break room, phone thrust in her face. "Oh my God, Amara, look at this." The screen showed a news article. Kang Dynasty arranged marriage shocks underworld. Min-jae to wed crime family daughter. Amara's stomach dropped as she scrolled through photos. Kang Min-jae standing beside a beautiful Korean woman in traditional hanbok. Both of them posed like political figures. The union clearly strategic rather than romantic. The article detailed the merger of two powerful criminal organizations, called it the crime wedding of the decade. "Can you imagine?" Sun-hee chatted obliviously. "These mafia families are like something out of a drama, so intense." Amara handed back the phone, her hands shaking. She had no right to feel betrayed. She'd been the one to walk away. But the thought of Min-jae with someone else, of him building a life in that dark world, of never seeing him again, made her chest tight with something that felt dangerously close to grief. She made it through her shift on autopilot, then went home to her empty apartment and finally let herself cry. Cried for the connection she'd lost, for the loneliness that stretched out before her, for always being the woman nobody chose. At 2 a.m., someone knocked on her door. Amara looked through the peephole, her heart stuttering. Kang Min-jae stood in her hallway, still in what looked like formal clothes from some event, his hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. She opened the door. "What are you doing here?" "I called it off." "What?" "The marriage, the alliance, all of it." He stepped forward and she could see something wild in his eyes, something desperate. "My father is furious. The other family is threatening war. I've probably started a conflict that will cost lives. And I don't care. I don't care because the only thing I could think about at that engagement dinner was that I was marrying the wrong woman." Amara's back hit the wall as he moved closer, not trapping her but pleading with his entire body. "Min-jae, you can't. This is insane." "The world rejected you," he said, echoing words from the river. "Everyone looked at you and decided you weren't enough. I won't. I refuse to be another person who was too blind to see what's right in front of me. I'm not some project for you to fix, some way to rebel against your family." "No." His hand finally touched her face, cupping her jaw with a gentleness that contradicted everything she knew about him. "You're the first person in my entire life who looked at me and saw someone worth saving. Not the heir, not the boss, not the weapon my father shaped me into, just a man bleeding out in an alley." "You were more than that to me too," Amara whispered. "You were the first person who made me feel like I wasn't invisible." "Then be visible with me, be seen, choose this." His forehead pressed against hers. "Choose me, even though I'm dangerous and damaged and completely wrong for you. Choose me anyway." Amara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of every rejection she'd ever faced, every time she'd been second choice or no choice at all. And then she felt something else, the courage that had made her step into that alley, the strength that had kept her surviving in foreign lands, the defiance that had built a life from nothing. "I choose you," she breathed. "God help me, I choose you." He kissed her then, and it felt like diving off a cliff, terrifying and exhilarating and inevitable. When they broke apart, both breathless, Amara saw something in his expression that looked like reverence. "I'll protect you," he promised. "Whatever comes, whatever they do, I'll." "We protect each other," she corrected. "That's how this works." He smiled and it was beautiful. Deal. The war came faster than expected. 2 days after Kang Min-jae made his choice public, appearing with Amara at a high-profile business dinner, his hand never leaving hers, staking his claim in front of Seoul's criminal elite, the retaliation began. Someone slashed her tires. Her locker at work was vandalized with racial slurs. Anonymous messages flooded her phone with threats and photographs of her daily routine, making it clear she was being watched. "This is what I warned you about," Min-jae said grimly, reviewing the threats in his penthouse apartment, a space Amara had started spending more time in, both for safety and because she couldn't quite stay away. The Beek family considers my refusal an insult. They'll target you to get to me. So what do we do? I increase your security, put people on you 24/7. You don't go anywhere without. I am not living in a cage. Amara's voice was steel. I worked too hard for my freedom to hand it over now. Your freedom doesn't mean anything if you're dead. And your protection doesn't mean anything if I lose myself. She stood, packing the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul. I didn't choose this life with you so I could become a prisoner. If we're going to be together, it has to be on terms we can both live with. Min-jae was silent for a long moment, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Then he stood, walked over, and pulled her into his arms. You're right, I'm sorry, His voice roughened. I've never been afraid before, Amara. Not really, but the thought of losing you terrifies me. She held him tighter, feeling the tension in his body. Then teach me. Teach me how to move in your world, how to protect myself, how to see danger coming. Don't just lock me away, make me stronger. You're already the strongest person I know. Then help me become stronger. So he did. Over the following weeks, while Min-jae's conflict with the Beek family escalated into strategic attacks and counterattacks, he trained Amara, self-defense, situational awareness, how to spot a tail, how to identify threats, how to move through dangerous spaces. She was a fast learner, her medical knowledge combining with his street wisdom to create instincts that might keep her alive. But knowledge and preparation couldn't prevent everything. It happened on a Thursday evening. Amara was leaving the hospital after a night shift, exhausted but alert, scanning the parking garage like Min-jae had taught her. The car he'd sent for her was in its usual spot, the driver someone she recognized. She never saw the second vehicle until it was too late. The van cut off her escape route and men poured out 4 of them, professional and fast. She fought, landing a solid kick to one man's knee and an elbow to another's face, but they were prepared for resistance. A cloth covered her mouth, chemical sweet, and the world went gray. When Amara woke, she was in a concrete room with no windows, zip-tied to a metal chair. Her head throbbed and her mouth tasted like cotton and chemicals. Across from her sat a man in an expensive suit, his face pleasant despite the circumstances. "Miss Akafor," he said in English. "I apologize for the dramatic introduction. I'm Beek Jin-ho, and we need to have a conversation about Kang Min-jae. If you're going to kill me, just do it." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "I'm not interested in whatever game this is." "Kill you?" Beek Jin-ho looked genuinely surprised. "That would be a waste. You're valuable alive, leverage against a man who's proving difficult to negotiate with." He leaned forward. "Do you know what Kang Min-jae really is, Miss Akafor? Do you understand the man you've attached yourself to?" "I know enough. Do you know he's killed 14 men personally? That his organization moves weapons, drugs, and human beings? That the nice life you're living is built on suffering?" Amara met his eyes steadily. "And your organization is different." "Touché," a slight smile. "But here's what you don't know, Kang Min-jae doesn't love you. He's using you as a rebellion against his father, a way to destabilize old alliances and consolidate power. You're a pawn, Miss Akafor, a useful piece on a board you can't even see." "You're lying." "Am I? Then why did he choose you, specifically you, when he could have had anyone? A foreign woman, an outsider with no connections, no family to complicate things." Beek Jin-ho's voice turned gentle, almost pitying. "He chose you because you're disposable, because when this game ends there will be no consequences to losing you." The words hit like a physical blow, landing on every insecurity Amara had ever felt. The voice in her head that whispered she wasn't enough, wasn't worthy, would always be the woman nobody really wanted. But then she remembered Min-jae's face in her doorway at 2 a.m., the desperation in his voice. The way he looked at her like she held his whole world in her hands. "You're wrong," she said quietly, "and you're desperate. If I was really just a disposable pawn, you wouldn't have kidnapped me. You'd have killed me and sent the body as a message. The fact that I'm alive means I matter more than you want to admit." Baek Jin-ho's smile vanished. Bold words for a woman in chains. "These are zip ties, not chains. There's a difference." The door burst open then, and chaos erupted. Amara would later learn that Min-jae had mobilized every resource. He had the moment her security team reported her missing. He'd torn through Seoul's underworld like a avenging angel, leaving bodies and broken bones in his wake, following a trail that led to this warehouse in Incheon. But in the moment, all she saw was Min-jae appearing in the doorway with a gun in his hand and murder in his eyes. He took in the scene, Amara tied up, Baek Jin-ho standing over her, and something inhuman crossed his features. "Step away from her." "Or what?" Baek Jin-ho smiled. "You'll shoot me in front of your precious girlfriend. Show her exactly what kind of monster you really are." "She already knows what I am." Min-jae's gun never wavered. "The question is, do you know what I'm capable of when someone threatens what's mine?" Big talk for a man who... The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Baek Jin-ho dropped, clutching his shoulder, screaming. Min-jae crossed the room in 3 strides, kneeling beside Amara, his hands shaking as they worked at her restraints. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you? Talk to me, Amara, please." "I'm okay." Her hands came free and she cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. "Min-jae, I'm okay." He pulled her against him so tightly she could barely breathe, his entire body shaking. Around them, his men were securing the warehouse, dealing with Baek Jin-ho's people, but Min-jae seemed to exist in a bubble containing only Amara. "I thought I lost you," he whispered into her hair. "I thought, God, Amara, if anything had happened to you." But it didn't. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes, and we're not finished talking. Later, in the safety of his penthouse with armed guards at every entrance, Amara sat across from Min-jae and asked the question that had been eating at her since the warehouse. "Did you choose me because I was convenient? Because I was foreign and expendable and wouldn't complicate your power plays?" Min-jae's face went still. "Is that what he told you? Just answer the question." He was quiet for so long she thought he might not respond. Then he stood, walked to a wall safe she'd never noticed, and pulled out a worn photograph. He handed it to her without a word. Amara stared at the image. It showed a much younger Min-jae, maybe 19 or 20, standing beside a smiling Korean girl. They looked happy in love. "Her name was Seo-yeon," Min-jae said softly. "My first love. My father arranged for her family to be killed when I tried to leave his organization to start a normal life with her. He made me watch." His voice was hollow. "He told me that love was weakness, that caring about anyone made you vulnerable, so I stopped caring. For 8 years, I stopped feeling anything at all." Amara looked up at him, her throat tight. "Then a woman with kind eyes knelt in my blood in an alley and refused to let me die. She was everything my world told me was wrong, foreign, different, outside the hierarchy. And she was the first person in 8 years who made me remember what it felt like to be human." He took the photo back, stared at it. "I didn't choose you because you were convenient, Amara. I chose you because you reminded me I had a choice at all." The photograph went back in the safe. Min-jae turned to face her fully. "But Baek Jin-ho wasn't completely wrong. Being with me does put you in danger. It marks you as a target. And I am a monster. I've done things that would make you sick if you knew the details. You deserve better than this. Better than me." Amara stood, crossing to where he stood rigid and hurting. "Don't I get a say in what I deserve?" "You should want more." "I want you." She took his hands, laced their fingers together. "The real you, not the monster your father made, not the boss everyone fears, the man who sits with me at cafes and asks about my day, who learns Igbo phrases to surprise me, who looks at me like I'm the most important person in the world. Her voice strengthened. That's the man I choose, every time, no matter what. Something broke in his expression, a wall coming down that had probably been built since he was 20. He pulled her close, and when he kissed her this time it felt different. Less desperate, more grounded, like a promise being made. I don't deserve you, he whispered against her lips. Probably not, but you've got me anyway. The war with the Beek family ended 3 days later when Min-jae made a move that shocked Seoul's entire criminal underworld. He went to his father, the man he'd barely spoken to in months, and offered a deal. Min-jae would take over full operations of the Kang organization, expanding their legitimate business holdings and reducing their more violent operations, in exchange for his father's support in ending the Beek conflict. You're getting soft, his father had apparently said, because of that girl. No, Min-jae replied. I'm getting smart. And yes, because of Amara, she makes me want to build something instead of just ruling over ashes. The elder Kang, surprised by his son's newfound strategic thinking rather than just brutality, had agreed. Within 48 hours, a negotiated peace was established. The Beek family would withdraw their threats. Min-jae would provide financial compensation for the broken marriage alliance, and a new power structure would emerge with the Kang family at the center. When Min-jae told Amara about it, she'd laughed, a sound of pure relief and disbelief. You started a criminal war and ended it for me. Technically, I started it by refusing to marry someone I didn't love. I ended it by promising to be the kind of leader you could respect. He pulled her close. Besides, I'm tired of just surviving. I want to actually live, and I want to do that with you. That's the most romantic and terrifying thing anyone's ever said to me. I'll work on being less terrifying. Don't change too much. I kind of like the dangerous parts too. 6 months later, at a dinner hosted by one of Seoul's most exclusive hotels, Kang Min-jae walked into the ballroom with Amara on his arm. She wore a custom-made gown that merged Nigerian and Korean aesthetics, traditional attire patterns in Korean silk, a statement of two worlds meeting. Heads turned, whispers followed, but for the first time in her life, Amara didn't feel like she was being judged. She felt like she was being seen. Min-jae had invited everyone who mattered in his world, business associates, rival families, politicians on his payroll, even some of his father's old guard. The room hummed with tension and curiosity, everyone wondering what the infamous Kang Min-jae would say. He stepped up to a small platform, Amara beside him, and the room fell silent. Most of you know me as my father's son, Min-jae began, his voice carrying easily. As someone who's made decisions based on power and fear, tonight I want you to know me as something else, as a man who learned that real strength isn't about control. It's about having the courage to choose what matters. He turned to Amara, taking her hand. This woman saved my life, not just in an alley 6 months ago, but every day since. She looked at me, at what I am, what I've done, and chose to stay anyway. Not because she was afraid or because she wanted something from me, but because she saw the person I could be if I was brave enough to try. Amara's eyes stung, but she kept her composure as Min-jae continued. The world told her she wasn't enough. People rejected her because she was different, because she didn't fit their narrow definitions of beauty or belonging, and she survived anyway. She thrived. She built a life and a career in a country that made it difficult at every turn. She's the strongest person I've ever met. He knelt then, and the room gasped. Kang Min-jae, who knelt to no one, going down on one knee in front of everyone who mattered in Seoul's underworld. Amara, you were the girl nobody chose. Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that was their loss, not yours? Will you marry me? The ring was stunning, a blend of diamonds and black sapphires that caught the light like stars. But Amara barely saw it. She was looking at the man who'd started a war and brokered peace, who'd risked everything and rebuilt himself, who'd taken the broken pieces of both their lives and shaped them into something beautiful. Yes, she breathed, then louder, yes. The room erupted in applause, some genuine, some political, all of it background noise to the way Min-jae stood and kissed her like she was the only person who existed. Later, as they danced to music that blended K-pop and Afrobeats, Min-jae pulled her close. Are you happy? Amara looked around at the room full of people who were seeing her, really seeing her, for the first time. At the man who'd chosen her when choosing her was the hardest, most complicated thing he could do. At the life spreading out before her, complicated and imperfect and utterly real. I'm more than happy, she said. I'm home. Even though home includes organized crime and dangerous politics and... Home is wherever you see me, she interrupted. Really see me. Everything else we'll figure out together. Deal, he spun her, grinning. Though for the record, I'm working on making our operations more legitimate. Your influence is turning me respectable. Good, I like my criminals with a conscience. And I like my nurses with a backbone. They laughed together, and somewhere in that room full of souls elite and dangerous, two people who'd been rejected by their worlds found something neither had expected: acceptance. Not from everyone, that would never happen, but from each other. And sometimes that was enough. Sometimes that was everything. As the night wore on, Amara caught sight of herself in one of the ballroom's many mirrors. She saw a woman who'd been called too dark, too foreign, too different, standing beside one of Korea's most powerful men, who looked at her like she hung the moon. She saw someone who'd learned that being chosen wasn't about changing yourself to fit someone else's standards. It was about finding someone brave enough to expand their world to include you. The girl nobody wanted had become the woman a king refused to lose. And that, Amara thought as Min-jae pulled her back into his arms, was the best revenge of all. Not revenge against those who'd rejected her, they didn't matter anymore, but revenge against every voice that had told her she wasn't enough, against every doubt that said love like this couldn't exist, against the lie that being different meant being less. She'd proven them all wrong simply by surviving, by thriving, by choosing herself first and then choosing love on her own terms. What are you thinking about? Min-jae murmured against her ear. That I'm glad I stepped into that alley. Even though it led to kidnapping and gang wars and a criminal fiancé. Especially because of all that. She pulled back to meet his eyes. You once told me the world rejected me, but you wouldn't. What you didn't know is that I'd already rejected the world's opinion. I'd already decided I was enough, even if I was the only one who believed it. You were just the first person strong enough to believe it with me. Min-jae's expression turned reverent. I love you. I know, she smiled. I love you too, even the scary parts. Especially the scary parts. Let's not get carried away, but yes, even those. They danced until Seoul's night bled into dawn, two people from different worlds building a new one together. One choice, one day, one act of courage at a time. And somewhere in Nigeria, Amara's mother would watch the news coverage of her daughter's engagement to one of Korea's most powerful men and shake her head in wonder. That girl, she'd say to anyone who'd listen. I told her to come home and find a nice man. Instead, she stays in Korea and finds a dangerous one. But look at her face. When has my Amara ever looked so happy? When indeed. Because happiness isn't about safety or approval or fitting into spaces that were never designed for you. Sometimes happiness is about finding someone who looks at all your sharp edges and different shades and says, yes, this, exactly this. Amara had spent her whole life being told what she wasn't: Korean enough, light enough, pretty enough, traditional enough. But Min-jae had looked at her and seen what she was: brilliant, strong, beautiful, his. And she'd looked at him and seen past the monster to the man underneath. Had seen someone worth saving, worth loving, worth building a complicated, imperfect, beautiful life with. They said no man would ever choose her. They were wrong. Not because she changed herself to become choosable, but because she found someone brave enough to choose differently. Someone who understood that love isn't about fitting someone into your existing world. It's about having the courage to build a new world together. As the first light of Seoul's dawn broke over the city, Amara Okafor, nurse, survivor, fighter, and now fiancée to the man who'd rewritten every rule for her, stood at the window of their penthouse and smiled. The girl nobody chose had chosen herself first. Everything else had just fallen beautifully, dangerously, perfectly into place. If you enjoyed Amara and Min-jae's story of defying expectations and finding love where the world said it couldn't exist, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories about people who refuse to let the world define their worth. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story about courage, love, and proving everyone wrong in the best possible way. What did you think of their journey? Let me know in the comments below.